We're going to get started right at 7 tonight. So please just check that everything is working, that you're seeing and hearing everything you need to be hearing. And if anything is not working right, just let us know in the chat and we'll take a look. Yeah, and the other thing you'll see in our chat, we'd love to hear where you are watching us from tonight. So if you want to share the area in London you're from, the neighborhood, the street, whatever you feel comfortable with, and we'll just get a sense of where everyone's coming from. So if you feel comfortable, no obligation whatsoever, but thanks for joining us tonight, and please just share in the chat where you're watching us from. I'm here at London Central Library, not that that's perhaps relevant, but anyway, I'm right here downtown tonight as our library is about to close in a few minutes. Okay, oh, we have St. Thomas, Oxford and Wonderland, and Oak Ridge is coming in. That's great. It's nice to see and just to try and connect a bit more with people, since we can't chat and interact in an actual room these days. All right, and I see more people joining us. Oh, even Kilworth, that's terrific. Great, yeah. So as you're coming in, feel free to share where you're coming from, and we'll get going in about 3 minutes on our session today on West 5. And just to let you know again, if you're having any issues, just give a type in the chat, send us a message and let us know if there's anything that's not working right for you. And if you're having any trouble finding the chat, it's along that bottom bar of your Zoom screen, and it's got the little speech bubble on it. And if you don't see it, sometimes just hover your mouse down there and you'll see it pop up. All right. So we have a good, mix of people already in our group as we're getting started. And just to let you know, everyone's muted when they're coming in, but you can chat with us in the chat box. All right, welcome to our new participants. Welcome, welcome. This is our Green in the City second last session of the spring, winter, spring. Yeah, feel free to share in the chat where you're watching us from tonight. And we'll get going in about a minute. Okay, we've got a London. And if you want to share the neighborhood that you're into, just to get a sense, just because we're very focused on the Byron area, we're going to talk more about that general area tonight, obviously, but just to see if you're from that part of the world. Got Wortley Village. And even if you wanted to change your chat from panelists to panelists and attendees as well, other people can see your chat as well, but you don't have to. Just an option if you'd like to share. So Orchard Park now in downtown London. All right, I see that it is 7 o'clock, so we're going to start our program as people continue to join us. Let's get started. So welcome, an official welcome to everyone. I'm Joanna Kerr, and I'm a librarian at London Public Library. We'll start this session of Green in the City, which is a program in partnership with the City of London, London Environmental Network, and London Public Library. What I wanted to do tonight was actually to start with a book, as I always do, just to share a book related to tonight's topic. It's called Solved, and it's written by the former mayor of Toronto, David Miller, and he writes about the successes in 9 cities around the world that are becoming more energy efficient and reducing carbon emissions. The book was published last year and can be borrowed from the library, and it's a really hopeful look at what people are doing, the innovation and the great ideas that are happening. So at that, I'll stop my book review or recommendation, and more will be coming to you in the follow-up email for this program. But I would like now to introduce Leah Derricks from the London Environmental Network for a welcome and land acknowledgement.
Thanks, Joanna. Hi, everyone. I'm Leah from the London Environmental Network. I'd like to begin with a territorial acknowledgement. We'd like to acknowledge the history of the traditional territory and honor the long-standing relationships of the 3 local First Nations of this land and place in southwestern Ontario. The 3 long-standing Indigenous groups of this geographical region are the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Lenape. We would also like to recognize the 3 First Nations communities downriver Deshkonzibi, also known as Thames River or Ayler River, which are the Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida of the Thames, and Munsee Delaware Nation. We strive to work with these communities to continue to listen, learn, and restore the natural area back to its original beauty, and support environmental initiatives and help our communities become climate resilient. Thanks, and back to you, Joanna.
Thanks, Leah. All right, so we'll get into our program today as we see more people are joining us, so welcome. So we'll get into our session, Ontario's first neighborhood powered by the sun, West 5. This session will be recorded and available online after the program. So for our agenda tonight, we're going to introduce our guests, our panel members, and we're going to have them give some background on this particular development and their perspectives on it. Then we're going to go into conversation with them, ask some questions, and then go into a question and answer period with you and get your questions and have our guests answer those. And we're going to actually start with a video before we get into our Q&A. So that's our agenda for tonight. What I'm going to do now is introduce our guests. So I'm going to start by introducing Maureen Zunti. So Maureen is the manager of planning and development for Sifton Properties Limited. With over 20 years of planning experience, Maureen has been responsible for a wide range of planning projects ranging from minor variances and site plans to secondary plans and heritage conservation district studies. She has been a volunteer with the Ontario Professional Planners Institute in various capacities, including as chair of the Southwest District Leadership Team, and has also received an OPI or OP, I don't know how to say that acronym, of the Ontario Professional Planners Institute, their Award of Excellence and Member Service Award. Maureen has a passion for living in and creating sustainable, active, and healthy communities. So welcome, Maureen. I'll introduce Neil now. Neil Carter has been employed with Sifton Properties Limited as Director of Commercial Construction for just over 6 years. He is responsible for technical research and innovation, review, costing, coordination, and implementation of projects for new commercial, retail, and multi-residential construction. Neil has a Bachelor of Arts degree from Wilfrid Laurier University with 15 years of project management experience in construction, manufacturing, specializing in healthcare, municipal wastewater and drinking water, aerospace, and environmental industries. And our third guest tonight is Dan Doroschenko. Dan moved to Byron with his family in the early 1950s. After university, he lived in different areas within London, in and out of town, moving back to Byron over a decade ago. He is currently the chair of the Byron Community Association and an active volunteer member of both the Soho Community Association and Lambton Shores Community Association. And now we'll share a short video just to introduce you to West 5, the pedestrian-centric, I'm not good at that phrase. West 5, the pedestrian-centric community with a vision for 100% energy efficiency that includes a central park, walkways, trails, and open green spaces. So we'll share this video with you now. If you have any trouble, we'll have the link in the chat for you to take a look at it whenever you like. All right, well, that gives you a bit of an idea of the space if you haven't walked by, driven by, or seen it. And so now I'm going to invite Maureen to start our event officially by sharing her background on this project. And I'll turn it over to you, Maureen.
Okay, thank you. Share my screen as well. Can you see that? Okay. So,
I'm not seeing it yet, Maureen, sorry.
no, okay, just hold on 1 second.
Looks good.
Get there now. Okay, thanks very much. Yes, I'm Maureen Zunti and I work for Sifton. I've been with Sifton for about 14 years and I've been involved in this project for about 15 years, even prior to my involvement and my coming over to Sifton. So West 5 is intended to be a very, very unique community. It's really about change, about how we change the way we live, how we change the way we work, and just how we change our communities. If you're not familiar with where West 5 is, it is in West London and it is approximately 70 acres. It's bounded by Oxford Street, Shore Road, Keynes Road, and West Elborn. It's very close to the existing Riverbend and Warbler Woods residential neighborhoods to the north and the south. And it's also very close to extensive natural areas, including the Thames River, Warbler Woods, the Riverbend District Park, and the city's multi-use trail system. So it's in a very central area for the western part of London. Oops. So I've been involved, as I mentioned, with West 5 for about 15 years, and it's been a very complex process. From the start, it was very iterative. Sometimes it felt like we were going around in circles, multiple directions, with a lot of different options. This cartoon just gives you a general sense of about 15 years of planning and design, which I'm going to compress into about 2 or 3 minutes. The timelines and design decisions for West 5 were also very much affected by the economic fallout of 2008 in the recession, technical studies that were done by the City of London for stormwater management, technological advances in energy and alternative energy sources. All of these delays ultimately actually created the time to really refine our total development concept for West 5 and to partner with other technical experts that had extensive knowledge related to sustainability and renewable energy options. And ultimately, I think that helped create a much more innovative project. The original expectation for this area, which had originally been approved back in the late 1990s, around 2000, was that it was going to be probably more of a big box style of commercial area that was bound by West Elborn and up to Shore Road. But about 15 years ago, Sifton started taking a look at more detailed plans with the area to try and create something that was a bit more lifestyle oriented, with a greater emphasis on higher design standards, pedestrian connections, and sustainability. The reasons why they started to look at this in a different way was to look at things in the longer term. Sifton has been around for almost 100 years. And so this was a way of looking to the next 100 years and thinking, well, how do we create something new, something innovative? So the other reasons were to try and reduce reliance on traditional energy sources and also to make the development more affordable over time and with a wider range of housing options, commercial options, and so on. We worked with engineers, sustainability specialists, architects, and landscape architects to develop an overall master plan and an extensive urban design guideline document. And ultimately, over time, we developed the master plan concept and had approvals in the official plan with special policies that were crafted that will permit the mix of uses and the flexibility that we need for sustainability features and design over the long term and to guide the overall development, as this is a project that's going to take quite a lot of time to complete in its totality. Now that we've got sort of the framework and from a design and policy standpoint, we go through a site plan approval process with the city for every building. So the whole intent of West 5 is to create a very mixed use community where there is a much greater integration of activities and uses, including retail, recreational, office, commercial, and residential. We're trying to create a community that has more variety within individual buildings as well as within the block, rather than separating uses. The core values for West 5 are that it will be smart in that it is more compact and mixed use and energy efficient, that it is connected both physically and technologically, that it is active, so it is more pedestrian and cycling oriented, and that is healthy and provides opportunities for both social and physical engagement. Ultimately, the overall development is expected to have about 450,000 square feet of commercial and office space and over 2,000 residential units of various types, primarily multifamily in the form of townhouses and apartments and retirement. So the vision for West 5 is that it's intended to be very smart and innovative. We're trying to make it a very progressive project that focuses on renewable energy and environmental sustainability. And Neil's going to provide more details on some of the technical aspects of that. But it is definitely one of the most innovative and leading edge projects that Sifton has ever done in their 100 years or almost 100 years of development. Just going to switch to the next one. The West 5 is intended to be very connected, as I mentioned before, both technically as well as from a green space standpoint. We've got a large central park that will be developed in the future. We've been working on some of the designs for that, and it'll be developed in the future that will help people have an opportunity to play and connect and have all kinds of recreational opportunities. There's all kinds of ideas that are in play. It would be something that will have a lot of event programming as well, so that is an active and vibrant space year round. We're also focused on having modern architecture and a mix of commercial and residential tenants. There's also going to be a trail that connects from the north to the south. That's actually been constructed already. So it goes from Oxford Street to the District Park on the north side of Shore Road. And that will ultimately integrate with some additional park space so that people can walk and bike and rollerblade and make their way through the development in many different ways. I'm going to let Neil take over now and talk about some of the sustainability features that are built into West 5 now and in the future.
Thanks very much, Maureen. Again, my name is Neil Carter. I've been working for Sifton now for 6 years. I'm the Director of Commercial Construction, so I oversee the construction of our multi-unit residential buildings, as well as our retirement buildings and our commercial and retail buildings. So basically everything that's encompassed within West 5. I also do a lot of the technical research into some of the sustainable technologies that we're putting within West 5. So this slide kind of highlights some of the things that we have incorporated and are looking at incorporating for future developments within the West 5 community. Green roofs are great ways to have outdoor space within a dense urban environment. So on top of buildings, you will have seen these likely within pretty urban spaces. This basically provides an outdoor living space for people who may not be able to have it within an apartment. So it encourages people to get outside, get fresh air. And one of the other things that green roofs provide is very good insulation, much better insulation than what a typical roof would provide. And we're doing it with natural elements like wild grasses, natural plantings, and things like that that we can incorporate onto the roof that provide better insulation than just a standard styrofoam and poly constructed roof. One of the things that we've also incorporated are solar streetlights. So some of the streetlights within our townhouse development that we've already completed are powered solely from solar power. So during the winter months, as you know, in Canada, there's not a lot of sunshine, but these solar streetlights have a battery life of about 7 or 8 days. So even if there is a little bit of sunshine, these solar streetlights can be powered from the solar or from the battery that's located at the base of the streetlight. This is a huge cost savings to London Hydro because London Hydro doesn't have to trench in the additional electrical power requirements to power solar streetlights. And it also is a big savings to us as a developer. Yes, the streetlights are a little bit more expensive, but in the grand scheme of things, it's actually less costly for London Hydro and for ourselves to put solar streetlights in. EV charging stations. All of our townhomes that we've developed so far, as well as our multi-unit residential buildings, have incorporated EV chargers within them. We've roughed in 4 EV chargers within our townhomes, and then we've also roughed in within our commercial buildings as well. So once people begin to live in those spaces, they have the opportunity to install an EV charger within those areas. Yeah, thank you very much. Joanna, EV does equal electric vehicles for those that don't know. So thank you for that. But yeah, people within the community do have the opportunity to be able to install those if they have an electric vehicle, and can reap the benefits of being able to basically charge their vehicles within the community. If you've driven by the west end of London and seen West 5, you will notice that there are solar panels in abundance. And the reason that that is because those solar panels are powering everything within the community. Our goal for West 5 is to be a completely net zero community. We know that there's some buildings within West 5, especially the higher density buildings, that are going to have a challenge to meet net zero targets. So it will be a bit of a challenge to get to net zero on a building by building basis, but then we know that our townhomes are overproducing solar. So what we're trying to do is develop a net zero community as a whole, not on a building by building basis. So sharing energy from one building to another. And we are looking at incorporating some battery storage as well. So those solar panels would basically charge up a battery, and then during periods of non-sunlight in the wintertime, we could use some of that extra energy to power other buildings within the community, or power EV charging stations, or power other things that may come to light in the future. Community gardens, we have community gardens installed right now. They're situated right in behind the second phase of our townhome development. And I believe we're selling those plots of land within the community gardens for very, very cheap to our residents. And people are planting tomatoes, herbs, and things like that that they can use within their cooking. And it gets quite a bit of use within the summertime. So we're really proud of that, and we're looking at developing that further throughout West 5. Solar parkades, really unique thing that's happening right now within West 5. These parkades are essentially a roof structure that goes above your vehicle. So in the wintertime, it keeps the snow off your vehicle, which is nice. And in the summertime, it provides shade. But the biggest benefit with the solar parkades is it creates energy. And within a giant parking lot, why not cover that parking lot with solar panels so that we can generate extra energy for the community? Within the Sifton Center, we constructed Canada's largest solar parkade. So that was a 400 kilowatt solar parkade housing 1,600 panels. And then after that was constructed, we decided to construct an even bigger one. So then we were Canada's, so we had Canada's second biggest and Canada's biggest at Helio. And Helio is about a 500 kilowatt array that sits over top of 150 parking spots. And that powers the building, the Helio building. So very unique stuff. And car chargers can actually plug into those solar parkades as well to be able to charge your car. And it's pretty unique stuff that we're doing out there within West 5. Maureen, you can go to the, awesome, thank you. West 5 will produce as much energy as it consumes. So like I said, as a goal, we are looking for a net zero community as a whole. There are some buildings within West 5 that overproduce energy, like I said, and our goal is to take that extra energy either through battery storage or through sharing it through the grid and powering the buildings that we know that are underproducing. So the community will have a net zero energy consumption by using solar as its main source of renewable energy. So even though we are tied to the grid with London Hydro, because we have to be by law, West 5 could actually power itself, even if we weren't tied to the London Hydro grid. London Hydro has been a partner with us from the very beginning of this project, and they are looking at how it benefits them, because they're having to put less infrastructure in place to be able to support large communities like West 5. So it actually benefits them because now we're feeding back into the grid, and there's less infrastructure on, or sorry, there's less weight on their grid, which is good. Okay. So again, not only is it a sustainable community, but it's also a smart community. We've looked at implementing smart technologies within the building that also contribute to energy efficiency. So some of those things are ultra efficient heating and cooling using VRF systems, low flow faucets, and toilets, so less flushing, using less water when taking a shower, things like that. And within our own building at the Sifton Center, we actually have a rainwater harvesting cistern. So all of the rain that falls on the top of the roof gets collected in a cistern in the basement. And that cistern is used to flush all of our toilets, and it's used to irrigate our lands around the head office. So at the end of the day, we have absolutely no use on that building for London City Water, which is awesome. There's about a 60,000 liter cistern that sits in the basement that holds all of that water to use within the building. LED lighting, obviously that's a pretty common thing that happens now within buildings, but is much more energy efficient than what a fluorescent bulb would be. Triple glazed windows obviously cuts down on solar heat gain, makes things, you're not putting stress on your HVAC systems within your building, and drain water recovery. And again, the buildings in West 5 are just designed to be smarter and built to be better. So some of the homes that we constructed, these were the image that you see in behind was the first Canadian Home Builders Association net zero rated multi-unit homes. So pretty unique to the area. Within those buildings, we had solar technology, obviously, on the rooftops. LED lighting that's controlled through your smartphone, all Energy Star appliances, which again are much more efficient than your standard appliance. Ultra efficient air conditioning, electrically modulating furnaces. There are energy usage apps that you can pull up on your smartphone to see in real time. If one of your kids left the fridge open, you can tell because it's actually using the more energy than what it normally would. And all of our buildings have extra insulation in them as well, along with triple glazed windows. So one of the biggest challenges that we had with these ultra efficient homes was that we needed to retrain the homeowner to think outside of the box and think more on best practices. So rather than adjusting your thermostat all the time with these modulating furnaces, you just set the thermostat and the furnace will modulate based on the temperature that you've set it to. Modulating furnaces are extremely efficient because they modulate based on how much energy they can use to provide the heat or to provide the cooling that's required to keep the buildings to the set point that you've set them at. So if you've driven by, you'll see the one big building on the corner. It's right on the corner of Riverbend and Oxford Street, and it's the Sifton Center. So it was, as far as I know, Ontario's very first net zero energy commercial building. We have won quite a few awards for the building, and it's extremely energy efficient. Again, incorporating solar panels, automated lighting within the building, green roofs, dynamic glass windows, which are really cool. It comes from a company called View Glass, and those dynamic windows basically tint based on the level of sunlight that that happens outdoors. So as the sun comes by over the building, you will see from east to west, the building's windows will tint, and that cuts down on the solar heat gain, which makes our HVAC much more efficient within the building. The only other thing on that slide, to Maureen's point, and I know she uses it quite a bit, is the secured bike parking. Within a lot of our buildings, we are incorporating secured bike parking. We're trying to make this a bikeable community, a pedestrian-friendly community, and we're trying to encourage people to not drive. We're trying to encourage people to cut down on the carbon emissions and get out and get some exercise and be healthy. And again, it's not just about the technology and the environment, it's the people. It's a sense of community that we're trying to build within West 5. Angela and her team do a great job of programming the space. So we've had things like farmers markets. We've had a falconer that came out one time and let some hawks go and instructed kids about the hawks. We've had a beekeeper out there. We have bees housed out at West 5, and he provides instructions about how honeybees are important to the environment and how we need to keep them alive. So again, it's not just about the technology and the environment, it's the people and the sense of community that we're trying to create within West 5. Maureen kind of hinted at this, but we are planning a large park within the middle of West 5 called Legacy Square. It's going to be home to some recreational programs, special events, seasonal activities like a ice skating rink that we're looking at putting there. You know, grab a hot chocolate with your family, go out, get some exercise. There is a children's play area there, and some solar art structures that you may have already seen as you drive by. Again, it's going to be the heartbeat of the community, and it's going to be the programming area, movie nights, things like that we're looking at bringing people out to West 5 to enjoy all the programming events that we have within the community. And it won't just serve the members of the community, we want to make it a destination as well. Community gardens, I already spoke about. Excuse me. And then this is the site plan. Can somebody give me, can you guys see my mouse moving around on the screen? If I move it, Joanna, can you give me mouse control? I'm not sure if you can.
We're going to check on that, Neil.
Okay.
Let's see if we can do that for you.
Or else you can tell me where you want the mouse to go.
Well, sure. Maybe that's easier, Maureen, if I can just instruct you to put the mouse where it is.
Can you see mine moving or not?
I can. So if you start at the Sifton Center, that was the building that we showed with the dynamic glass. And it's already constructed right at the corner of Oxford Street. The next building is 1305, Maureen, which was our second building that was constructed. That is a commercial building, about 40,000 square feet. It's going to house commercial and retail tenants within it. There are some retail tenants already within the building. There's a cupcake place, which is awesome, and a West Blooms, and it's a florist. And then the Oak West Animal Clinic, which is right there, which is a veterinary clinic. And then the next building just behind, that's Helio. So that is the building that I mentioned with the very large solar carport in behind it. It's 115 residential units. And it is currently, I think, 93% occupied, which is awesome. And then the other building that is currently under construction is the retirement residence. So Riverstone retirement residence and apartments. There's 115 apartments that are currently under construction and 123 units in the residence that's coming this summertime. To the left of that, Maureen, is the Riverstone Retirement Villas. So there are 20 single-story retirement villas that people that live there can use the Riverstone retirement amenities. And then the townhomes. In the first phase, those are the ones that are constructed. There's 87 units within that block. And then the block just to the east, there's another 73 units of apartment buildings. And then the next one that we're going to be starting, hopefully in the fall, is on the Building 8 site. And that's just between Helio and the retirement residence. We have a condo building and a rental building that will both be under construction later this year. A 72 unit condo building and a 65 unit rental building. And we do have plans in the future for a recreation center, which is shown over there. The North-South Trail, Maureen, if you can highlight that. That was the trail that Maureen had talked about that connects basically pedestrians from Oxford Street safely through the community and into the trail system that connects you to the Canes Woods Trails and into Riverbend Park. And Legacy Square, which we are under design right now for. There is also plans and hopes for a future grocery store within the base of that building, and some high-rise apartments that are at the corner. All of the buildings shown in purple have a retail component within them. So we're looking at ground floor retail with multi-unit residential up above. And that is all I have, I believe.
Thanks, Neil. That's terrific. It's great to have the visual there too. And thanks, Maureen. It gives us some good context for what we are talking about today. So now I'm going to invite Dan Doroschenko to say a few words about the Byron community and give some idea about kind of the spaces near and around this development. So I will hand it over to Dan. Maureen, if you want to do the stop screen sharing, perfect. And we'll have Dan come on in.
Thank you, Joanna. I was asked to provide information about what a community organization is, and the closest one to West 5 is Byron. The BCO, the Byron Community Organization, was established in the fall of 2013. It's a volunteer-run neighborhood group dedicated to keep the residents informed about the community, what's participating in city initiatives. There's been different initiatives that the city's had, such as Neighbourhood London, London Celebrates Cycling, and especially focusing on providing free family fun events in Byron. These annual events include Under the Stars Outdoor Movie Night in the latter part of August, a clean sweep garage sale that we do in September. That generates funds to cover all of our annual costs and events. The Halloween in the Village on the last Saturday of October for Halloween, just before Halloween. The first community event that we do is a volunteer activity during Earth Week. That's usually the latter part of April when we complete a cleanup of Jorgensen Park, just off of Norman Ave in Byron. In the early summer is the annual Reforest London free tree giveaway. We've co-sponsored with them over the last 3 years, partnering at different pickup points each year: Springbank Park, St. Anne's Anglican Church, and the Byron Community Center off of Jorgensen Park. Through one of the city initiatives called Untitled Adopt a Park, the BCO has adopted Jorgensen Park itself, and the city provides all the necessary materials for assisting us in an annual cleanup of the park. And located in the park is a new state-of-the-art public swimming pool, baseball diamond, soccer pitch, kids climbers, tennis courts, and most important is the Byron Optimist Community Center. We are, as a group, and Byron residents are really fortunate to have this center where all of our indoor activities take place. And even if there's an unexpected rain delay on our outdoor movie night, we can go indoors. The Byron Optimists, in their far-reaching community forecasting plans, built the center in 1958. That was 3 years before annexation by the City of London. And it was on land that was donated by a Byron family called the Jorgensens. And the BCO also is a member of the Urban League of London. We joined together with well over 35 different community organizations within the city, where the league brings groups together monthly, offering a sharing of ideas, support in community activities, As most groups are volunteer run and not registered charity or not for profit, that really helps. And as a member of the league, we receive insurance coverage, as an example, for all of our events, where because of our status, that coverage probably wouldn't be available. Our organization has as members a great group of volunteers who provide their time, efforts, and ideas in support of the BCO in providing those family fun events and community involvement each year. Thanks, Joanna.
Thank you, Dan. That's terrific. Yeah, just to give you an idea of who's in the area and a bit more about of what you do at the Byron Community Organization. Thanks so much. So now we're going to move into the part of our program where I have some questions prepared for Maureen and Neil and Dan to get more into some of what we've heard about, and then we'll get to the questions. There are quite a few we have lined up for our Q&A period with our audience. So let's start with questions for Maureen and Neil. Let's start with the basics here. We were just talking about Byron. So why was this location in London chosen for West 5?
I can start that and then Neil can add if he wants to. I think one of the reasons is that Sifton has owned the site for a very long time. As far as I know, they've actually had ownership of the site for more than, could be 20 to 30 years. So the land was available. And I think that was important to have something that Sifton could control what was going to happen on the site as a whole. I think it's really important, and Neil would be able to add to this, is that when you're developing a solar or a community that's powered by solar, you have to be very aware of what's going to be built and where. And so if we were going to try and do something like this, say in a downtown location where we don't own the adjacent lands, somebody else could put up, you know, a 20 or 30 story building, which would entirely shadow our solar panels and could completely negate the solar energy capture. So I think that was one of the reasons as well. And then another reason is that Sifton has owned the lands on the north and the south side in Riverbend and Warbler Woods and has been developing those over time. And so the intent is ultimately that West 5 will become a very vibrant focal point for that whole western part of the city. And, you know, obviously it's going to take time because this is a long-term development. But, you know, we certainly, that's part of the intent of the overall plan and the Central Park, is that there will be this vibrant focal area for the entire community, not just West 5, not just Riverbend and Warbler Woods, but everybody around the whole western part of the city.
All right, thanks, Maureen. Neil, did you want to add to that?
No, I think Maureen hit it right on the head, is that solar orientation is very important when building a net zero community. So we need to make sure that, you know, somebody doesn't put a 20-story apartment building right next to where we need to produce energy. Because if they do that, then it's going to shade our solar panels and we won't be able to produce energy as efficiently as we hoped. So doing it out in this end of the city is definitely the best way to do it. The area that we were in was some older agricultural land that was basically cornfield, and by using that land and being able to control sort of what's in it and what's around it, we are able to provide a very energy efficient community.
Yeah, makes sense for sure. All right, so the second question is, how many people are planned to live at West 5 and how many are there now?
Ultimately, we've got policies and zoning in place that would permit up to 2,000 units. So if you, and those are multifamily units, if you assume 2 to 2.5 people per unit, it could be about 4,000 to 5,000 people within that area. You know, the actual number will be dependent on market demand and everything else like that over time, but that's the number that we have approved in our zoning. And in terms of what we already have, I don't know how many people. I think Neil went over the number of units that have been constructed so far. And that would be about, I'm just trying to do a quick math in my head here, probably about 450 to 500 units, including the seniors apartments that are going to be opening up later this year. So
Yeah, we've constructed 265 units so far. So yeah, Maureen, 450 to 500, depending on the size of your family, is a good assumption for sure.
Very good, thank you. Another question. What are the advantages to using solar energy and how is it being used at West 5? I know we've touched on this during the presentation, so if there's anything else that we can add about the use of solar energy.
Yeah, sure, I can answer that one. Obviously, the advantages of solar energy right now is the cost. Solar panels have come down substantially in price, which is fantastic. Renewable energy is going to be the wave of the future. It is right now, and Canada's actually behind compared to other areas within Europe, within the southwestern US. And it definitely makes sense to use renewable energy because, like I mentioned before, it puts less stress on the grid. There will be less blackouts within London because of solar panels and renewable energy that we can feed back into the grid. And there will be less cost to developers and other people within the community because there's less infrastructure underneath the road to be able to power communities.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll have one more question for Neil and Maureen, and then I'll have some questions for Dan. So this question is, how much energy is West 5 currently producing and how is it being used?
So yeah, our overall goal is to have 9 megawatts worth of energy produced within West 5, and it's basically used to power the entire community. We are, as I mentioned, the goal is we've done energy modeling on the entire community, and our goal is to meet the energy demands of the community. So on our energy models, we assume probably about 8.5 to 9 megawatts worth of energy will be consumed by the residents and the commercial tenants within the community, and then we're going to offset that by using solar panels to compensate for the energy being used.
Okay. All right, thanks so much. And Dan, I'm going to ask you a few questions to get the perspective of residents in the area and the Byron Community Organization. So I understand that you visited the Discovery Center at West 5, and I just wanted to know, what was your impression when you visited the Discovery Center? That is, at this point, is not open, obviously, because of restrictions. But Dan, if you want to share that and just unmute to chat. Sorry, Dan, if you just want to unmute first. Yeah. Great.
There we are. We had a group tour, the members of the BCO, a couple of years ago, and I think it came through a promotional brochure. Didn't know they were offering that, and Sifton literally opened the doors to the group, and we walked through the entire building. People were working in their offices, but they were describing, the tour guide was describing to us the type of windows that were being used. The fact that there are solar panels that are coming down in cost now because the ability to produce them has increased, and they're more efficient. It was totally amazing. No idea what was inside that building and driving by on Oxford Street. And I would heartily suggest that once COVID over, and if the tours begin again, to take the time to go out there and have a look. It's absolutely amazing. One of the reasons why I wanted to participate tonight is because I wanted to find out what more items are occurring there, as I'm seeing it as it's being developed along. So it's pretty amazing development, and it's unfortunate. Well, I shouldn't say unfortunate. Yeah, okay. It's unfortunate that other developers aren't doing the same, applying the technology that's there today and offering that to businesses and residents as they are developing their own area. I think it's really needed. Thanks,
Dan. And I wanted to ask you too, so just based on the fact that as they're describing it, the development is still going on, but if you could share a bit about what this development has brought to the area?
I think it's opened up a lot of eyes as to the what can be applied to and what can be used in that area. But unless someone's driving on Oxford Street, they may not know about it, or they've heard the name, they may not know what it means. You really have to go in there, or if you know someone who lives there. The people that we know that live in the community, in your community there, are really enjoying what they have and fully understand what's there, and have moved from different parts of the city into West 5 and found it to be a great place to live. And it's still developing. So, and unless you drive down Oxford Street, you really need to go down and make a point of going to the area.
Thanks, Dan. Well, I'll share a few more questions. I'm just looking at the time. So we'll do a few more questions and then we'll open it up, because we do have a lot of activity in our Q&A and even in the chat. I've just been noting some of the questions here and they're good ones. So let me just see what else we can talk about. How about the, just trying to go through some of the things that we haven't talked about yet. How about the residents and commercial tenants of West 5? How are they benefiting from building technologies and the solar energy that's been generated?
I can speak to that one for sure. The residents and the commercial tenants within West 5 are benefiting from the energy efficiency. So at the end of the day, they're getting a less of a bill because the buildings are more efficient. They have LED lighting throughout. We're encouraging them to use laptops instead of desktop computers within their commercial space. They're benefiting from triple pane windows. They're benefiting from higher efficiency HVAC. They're benefiting from all of those technologies that we've incorporated within the building that bring them a lower cost on their energy bills. So per square foot, they're paying roughly the same amount of square footage that they would downtown, yet they're benefiting from having a newer office space and a more efficient office space as well. There's a lot of like-minded individuals too that are out in that area and extremely forward-thinking. So they like the idea of sustainability. They like the idea of energy efficiency, and they're coming to West 5 because of it.
Thank you. And a question too, still on the issue of commercial tenants. Is West 5 targeting specific retail tenants for the community?
I think we are. I think we're looking for like-minded individuals. We're not looking for the big box stores, that's for sure. We're looking for the boutique shops that are interested in coming out and have that community sense to them, and also have that forward thinking. We like people that are involved in energy efficient things, like if a building was to come in that supported, bike repair, or somebody that looked at organic foods, things like that. We're also looking at smart technology companies, things like that, that would like to come out here, that are forward thinking and like-minded like we are. So we're definitely not targeting the big box stores. We're targeting people that are like-minded individuals like ourselves.
Okay.
And I think sort of the more smaller local entrepreneurial types of businesses. Which
Yeah.
of course is a little challenging now in the COVID environment, but hopefully those kinds of things will change in the near future.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I'm just seeing a question in the chat actually related to what we're talking about. So I'll just add it here, saying, and I think it's just an issue of where the community and development is located versus some of the surrounding areas, but I will ask the question. It's saying, one of the audience members is saying, I see McDonald's, Tim Hortons, no family businesses there. Sad face, what do you say?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Jim. I see that there. I just want you to know that that's not our development. That is another developer's development. Everything to the north side of Oxford Street is Sifton's. So I'd encourage you to come out and actually, come have a look at West 5 and what we're doing out here. What's happening across the road is not our development. That's another developer within London. And unfortunately, yes, there is a McDonald's and a Tim Hortons there. But there's also other smaller shops within there. There's a boutique nail salon. There's a tutoring place that's in there. Unfortunately, the big guys did come out there, but not within our development.
Thanks, Neil.
No problem.
Okay, we'll take a few, just a few more minutes before we get to the questions, because I wanted to ask you about recycling and composting at West 5. Can you talk a bit about that?
Sure, I can handle that one. Composting is huge right now, especially within Helio. We all are encouraging our townhome people as well to compost, and that compost can be used within the community gardens, which is really cool. We also have another company that comes and picks up our compost for us, and they are using it for a restaurant here in the city. I'm not going to name their name, but they're very involved in organic cooking and things like that. And they're using a lot of that compost to grow herbs and things like that that they would use within their restaurant. So we actually have compost set up outside of Helio, and residents are using it quite a bit. Recycling, we have single stream recycling chutes within the Helio building. So people, rather than just tossing it down the garbage chute, they're putting it down a dedicated recycling chute. And that we have a company that comes and picks that up and separates the recycling for us, and then takes it to the recycling areas. So definitely encouraging recycling, definitely encouraging compost, and hopefully this city gets on a green bin someday, because I think that would be a fantastic thing to do.
Yeah, thanks so much. And I'll wrap this part up with a related question about sustainability. We've been hearing about the potential for bees there as well. Can you talk about what you're going to be doing with bees?
Sure. We have a beekeeper here in London. We actually have 2 hives on our green roof on the Sifton Center. We have 2 additional hives out on Riverbend Golf Course. And we've also got some hives within our retirement communities as well. So those hives reside there, and Dan, the beekeeper, comes out to all of our beehives, harvests the honey, and we bottle it, and we use it for giveaways. We've had it at our farmers markets, and it's great. We branded it, I believe, as West 5 Honey. Angela could probably speak a little bit more to the branding side of it and all that. But it's pretty cool stuff, and we're trying to encourage honeybees to come back to the area, and trying to develop honeybees because they're very important to our food production.
Yeah, thanks so much. That's wonderful. Okay, it was great to get into some of those issues a bit more, into some of the questions, but I think now it's time to go to our Q&A, and I will send them out there. Some of them I think we may need to refer to another source for information, but I'll take them in the order they were coming in. So the first question that we got was in relation to solar panels, and the question is about insurance. The question was related to the fact that perhaps insurance would not, let me just read this correctly here, that firefighters do not deal with these electrical units. What is the status regarding insurance and firefighter response to solar panels?
So all of our buildings, it's not correct that insurance rates are higher. All of our buildings actually have a electrical disconnect on the exterior of them. So if firefighters do have to come in and fight a fire, they would go to the electrical disconnect and completely shut down all of the panels that are on our rooftops. There was concerns back in the day before that electrical disconnect was incorporated. Without that electrical disconnect, the firefighters simply wouldn't go into buildings that had solar panels on them. So I believe Leanne had asked that question. She is right, but ESA, the Electrical Safety Authority, has mandated that an electrical disconnect is installed on every single building that has solar panels on the rooftop, so that firefighters can come in and they are informed about the West 5 community, and they will shut down the generation on those buildings.
Okay, thanks, Dan. A question about geothermal. Is the development using geothermal energy?
We have looked at it on our buildings. Wells are extremely expensive to drill. We don't want to disturb the aquifer either that's below the West 5 community, which we would have to tap into in order to heat up our buildings. The other thing is that the aquifer is very deep down, so we would have to drill very far down to get to the aquifer to be able to get geothermal. And we've also looked at the payback period, and I won't lie to you that it is cost prohibitive to put geothermal in, but extremely energy efficient and definitely the right thing to do. So we haven't incorporated it yet, but we are looking at it for future buildings for sure.
Okay. And I have a quick question. Where are the green roofs?
So green roofs, we have 2 of them right now on our buildings, and there will be a 3rd one installed. On the north face of the Sifton Center, facing 1305 Riverbend, directly above the Backroads building, the Backroads store, there is a green roof, and then there is another one facing Oxford Street, and that's the one where our beehives are. So, and then the 3rd one is going to be on the retirement building, and we are growing herbs up there, and those herbs are going to be used in the kitchen of the retirement building. So pretty cool stuff that's going on there.
Terrific. Thanks, thanks, Neil. And a question in the Q&A. First, offering congratulations and saying that they had visited West 5 and noticed less green area around the townhouses built than at other Sifton areas, saying that they live in Westmount Village. And the question is, how is it intended to integrate green areas into the neighborhood?
Yeah, no problem. I can answer that one as well. I would agree that the green areas within the community, within the townhouse blocks are not as substantial as they are in Westmount Village, that's for sure. However, again, I mentioned we're putting a 1.7 acre park within the center of the community, and that's going to encourage people to get out. There's an outdoor amenity space there, which is quite large and quite substantial. And then we also have the north-south trail that runs from Oxford Street and connects all of the walking trails within the community as well that's already been constructed. So there may not necessarily be some within the townhouse developments, but within the community for sure.
Thanks, thanks, Neil. And another quickish one. Are the cisterns, so you talked about the cistern that holds the water, are cisterns something individual homeowners can install at West 5 or elsewhere?
Sorry, what was that question? I'm just trying to follow along with the Q&A. Can you repeat that one?
Yeah, it's okay. I'm in the chat now. I'm going back and forth.
Okay.
So you had described the large cistern that gathers water off of the roof in the Sifton building. And so the question from Laura here is, are cisterns something that individual homeowners could install, whether they're at West 5 or elsewhere?
Yeah, great question. We actually do have one installed on our net zero home that is just across the road from West 5. It is very costly to put in, and it can be difficult to maintain as well, but there is nothing saying that you can't do it. I would suggest that if you're going to do it, perhaps use a rainwater barrel, and a lot of people use those to wash their cars, to irrigate, things like that. They put them at the end of the downspout so it captures all of the rainwater off the rooftop. But this one is actually buried under the ground in the front yard, and it's used for the irrigation and all the toilet flushing within the net zero home. Cost was about $8,000 to $9,000. So that's a long payback period on your water bill to be able to put a cistern in.
Yeah, Yeah, and I'm just noticing in the chat, one of the other audience members, Owen, said, I had a Sifton custom design and build my home over 30 years ago. I wanted a cistern and they had never built one before. We had an engineer design it with my input, expensive, but paid for itself now.
Again, you can do them quite simply out of concrete or PVC or things like that. The one that we put in was quite expensive. So
yeah, thanks so much. All right, we're still doing good for time because we have an 8:15 wrap up tonight. So I will go back to the Q&A. And the question is, was Eve Park mentioned? Is it part of West 5 and when will it begin and be finished?
yeah, sure. Eve Park is a development that's within West 5, not developed by Sifton. It's actually developed by one of our partners, S2E. I'd encourage you to visit their website if you would like more information about Eve Park. Unfortunately, I don't have all the information. I do know that you know, they're looking at very unique things around electric vehicle charging, very cool things with green roofs and incorporating those types of things. But I'd encourage you to check out their website, and the company's name is S2E Technologies, and they would definitely be able to answer any questions that you have about that development.
Okay, yeah.
I was just going to, I can add to that just for a minute, that I know they're going through the site plan approval process right now. So I believe that they're planning to start construction on their components starting this year as well. But yeah, they're doing some really neat things there too.
Great, thanks, Maureen. And Maureen, you might be able to jump in on the second part of the question from the same person. When will retirement apartments be complete?
Actually, Neil probably knows that better, but I think the first phase is supposed to be complete this summer sometime for the retirement apartments, and then the retirement residents will be starting construction later this year. Neil, you might have the specific dates.
No, you nailed it, Maureen. July 1st, we're hoping to get occupancy for the retirement apartments. There's 115 units and then 123 units under construction. Hopefully in June. We're in for we're in for building permit right now. Site plan's already been approved.
Terrific. All right, we have lots of questions coming in. So this one is, does the net zero estimate include the power used to charge electric vehicles?
Yeah, that's a great question. Unfortunately, it doesn't. The energy modeling that's done doesn't include the EVs because we don't know how much people are going to charge, and we don't know what level of charger they're going to put within their unit. So if they were going to put a level 1 charger in, sure, definitely we could get to net zero. Level 2 charger might be a bit of a challenge. However, we've basically done our energy modeling on a community-wide basis. And if we had 400 electric vehicle chargers, we would still be able to meet net zero on a community level.
Okay, thank you. And this one has a bit more detail. Do the dynamic glass windows help reduce, just going to move my mouse here, help reduce reflections and therefore reduce the number of birds hitting the glass?
Great question, and yes, they do. When they are tinted, they actually have an electrochromatic film that's inside of them, and birds will not go near them. So they are extremely bird friendly, and that's one of the other selling features of the View Dynamic Glass. Also helps reduce glare on computer screens, which reduces stress on the eyes and helps people working within an office environment.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to go back to the chat. I'm trying to keep up here, and we'll do our best to answer all your questions. We may not get to them, but I like the enthusiasm. Right. So someone is mentioning development in Freiburg, Germany, and their soccer stadium, and issues that arose due to lack of experience with PV point of view, I don't know, in the bigger urban planning, construction, and electricity generation sectors. Do you feel we are much further? I guess I'm not getting PV right here. Do you feel we are much further with the PV and therefore the challenges will be less of an issue? What I may be missing what PV is here.
Photovoltaics, which is solar. So yeah, great question by Jerry, and Maureen, you can even help me out with this one. But to Jerry's point, urban planning, especially the City of London, had a very difficult time understanding that all of our buildings need to orient south. They needed to be orientated south. So it maximizes the energy efficiency of the PV. By putting PV on rooftops, we need to make sure the buildings face south so that they can be as efficient as possible. And our planning department, Maureen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, likes to have
I can add to that a bit.
street facing buildings. So it can be a challenge.
Yeah, it's one of the complex things that we have to deal with when we're trying to integrate technology and planning and urban design. And so, you know, as we mentioned, we're trying to make a very street-oriented, walkable community. And from an urban design standpoint, we want to have buildings oriented to the street as much as possible. But sometimes we have to adjust things a little bit just so that the technology works from a solar standpoint. And so I always have to deal with that from an architectural standpoint and a streetscape design standpoint. And it can be a hard mix to sometimes rationalize, but we're trying to do the best we can.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Thank you. All right, let's go through here. Let's go to this one. I think you had mentioned it's not known exactly what retailers would come in, but there was some interest in when you mentioned a grocery store that there could be a zero waste or minimal packaging business that could be part of that grocery store component. I don't know if that's known at this time.
It isn't known at this time, but when I mentioned getting like-minded individuals in place, to Tasha's point in her question there, having somebody that has plans for zero waste or minimum packaging and having an organic grocer would be something that would be right up our alley and something that we would definitely be looking at. So great question. If you know any retailers that would like to come out here that have that sort of mentality and that forward thinking, then that would be amazing if they were able to come out here.
Great. All right. Question about wind energy systems. Anything with that?
Yeah, another great question. We've looked at it, and unfortunately, the City of London doesn't permit wind towers within their city boundaries. So PV it is. They do allow us to put smaller wind turbines up on buildings, but the amount of energy produced by a small wind turbine is negligent compared to what a PV panel can produce.
Right. And can you speak to sewer water? We have someone asking about the Springbank Water Treatment Center and just how the water will impact the current system.
Yeah, another great question. Unfortunately, it has to go to the Springbank Water Treatment Center. When we flush our toilets, it's going there. Until the city puts another water treatment plant in, we don't dictate that, unfortunately. But I can say that we are doing a better job of using potable city water by implementing our rainwater harvesting cistern. There's a lot less water being used. We're using water that's harvested off our rooftops, that's natural water, and it's getting used to flush our toilets. So at least the water that we're not discharging to the treatment plant is potable city water.
Okay.
I'm going to add to that one just a little bit because I mentioned the very iterative process of design and planning and so on this one. And because I've been involved in this project for 15 years, we actually had looked at the possibility of trying to use some type of sewer heat recovery type of system. And I think this was actually even before Neil had started working with Sifton, but it was just something that from an engineering standards, it was just something that the City of London, it's just not something that is in the current engineering standards. And it would have been a very, very difficult and challenging process to even look into that. And then the technology was still quite a ways off as well, but it is something that we actually considered probably about 10 or 12 years ago.
Okay, thanks, Maureen. Right. So, and thanks everybody for all of the comments. I'm going to leave them there in the chat, but thanks for sharing your perspective on these issues. So what I'll do now is invite all of our guests to just take about a minute for any final remarks, and then we'll just make some concluding, just have some concluding statements, but I'll open it up to you, starting with Maureen, if you want to just say anything in conclusion.
Sure. I mean, I've seen some comments coming up about, you know, the way it looks and, you know, say compared to a Wortley Village or whatever. Certainly it is a much more contemporary design. I think the thing to really remember is that it is a work in progress. It's still in the relatively early stages of development. And so the long-term goal is to have a very attractive community that is very vibrant, that has a lot of integrated spaces for activity and green space and cycling network that goes. I mean, we do have actually a multi-use trail that goes along Oxford Street that has been constructed. I believe that there's going to be a cycling lane, or it was shown in the original plans for along the Linkway Boulevard, cycling and multi-use trails again on the north-south trail. So there's a lot of opportunities to move around in active ways. And the landscaping, the trees, all those kinds of things get put in, you know, kind of down the line. And so it is a construction site in a lot of areas, and it will be for quite a few years. And so the real truth of it will, you know, from a design standpoint, we won't really see the end result of it for a number of years yet. But, you know, we've been trying to work with some very high quality architects to do some unique and innovative design, and it'll be an interesting evolution.
Yeah, good point, Maureen. Thanks so much. All right, final comments, Neil?
No, I think I would encourage you guys, once this nonsense is over with the pandemic, to come out and visit us 100%. I do see some comments in there that are concerned about some of the construction materials that we're using. They're concerned about the aesthetics of how it's going to look. They're concerned about us chopping down trees. Come out and visit us and have a conversation. The Discovery Center is there for that. Come out. I know Dan was there. Dan went out. He saw the Discovery Center and he saw all the unique things that we're doing. I'd encourage you to have a conversation with us and just see it. This isn't a typical development. This isn't flattening trees and putting up glass boxes in the sky. We're trying to build a better community. We're trying to build a better future, and we're trying to build a better community, I think, as a whole. So come out, have the conversation when we're open again. Come into the Discovery Center, see what we're doing, and see what we're all about. That's it.
Thanks, Neil. All right, Dan, anything to wrap up?
Yes, I'd echo Neil's comments. I'm not an employee of Sifton's, and I've lived in Sifton Homes in London, but go and see what that project is all about. And if I wasn't a true dyed in the blue wool or whatever it is, resident of Byron not wanting to leave, I would consider moving there. Now, I do have a question for either Maureen or Neil. What's going on at the very top of the retirement residence, and why was it chosen like that?
I'm actually just going to jump in there, Dan. So I think we might have to have that conversation offline. I'm noticing it's 8:15 right now.
Fair enough.
Sorry to derail that, but we just have a few more things to say, and then we can join our conversation another time. But what I'll do is thank you so much for being part of this, Maureen, Neil, and Dan. Thank you. It's just so great to hear the story, to see the pictures, and to just know more about this property. So it's really been a terrific conversation tonight. So I thank you for that. And so what we'll do now, I'll invite Leah, if you could just share our last slide, last slides. We'll start with that. And what I want to do is say that Green in the City is not quite over. So thank you all for coming, but we do have one more session next Tuesday. So March 30th, same time. But this one we're looking at Masonville and the future of Masonville. So we have got city staff, and we have John De Benedictus. I'm not great at saying his last name. We have John here from TD Bank as well, and all the innovation that they've been doing at their Masonville branch. So this is about this plan for Masonville and its future. So that's next Tuesday. So please check out the London Environmental Network's website for registration for that event. And I will hand it over to Leah now for our last comments of the night.
Thanks, Joanna. So what I'm going to do is just paste a bunch of links in the chat so you can all see them. And I'm just going to quickly run through them. So like Joanna mentioned, you can register for next week's Green in the City at our website, londonenvironment.net/green_city. And then some other things you can do to get involved in local climate and environmental initiatives are you can share your feedback to London's Climate Emergency Action Plan. The link is there and also in the chat. As well, the City of London has also launched a climate action plan simulator where you can kind of go in and build your own climate plan for the city and see what that would look like. So you can follow that link there to get involved with the climate action plan simulator. And Green in the City, register for next week. And you can also visit the London Environmental Network website and subscribe to our newsletter if you're not already subscribed, as that's the best way to get in the know about any upcoming environmental events. And lastly, I just want to thank the supporters of the London Environmental Network and thank everyone again for joining us tonight.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Right, thanks.